let's talk about Brawl. So I've gone down and streamlined my Brawl decks to just this single deck I'm going to play. Because Brawl in itself has turned into three types of decks that I'll go over later as we play. Well, I should cover it now because it explains my thing. We have the janky fun decks where people are very rare, but they're just trying the newest stuff that's come out. You have the the old school commander decks where they've very clearly built their deck around their commander, and if the commander dies, they leave the match. Yeah, I'm not even joking. Like, I've used one kill spell on a commander once and had people leave. And then you have full-on control decks, which are basically pass-go to fairy control decks, which are surprisingly good. So what I've done is I've streamlined all of the Niv decks that we were playing before, the Brawl ones for fun, got rid of them, and condensed this down into a Gigantha style deck, like my main EDH deck that I have in paper and on Modo. So we are running so let's go through this. We are running 40 lands, as the split here shows you. This is our curve. We have only 16 creatures, 7 enchantments, 2 planeswalkers, and 40 lands, averaging a 2.7, and we are playing Historic Brawl. So, what happened here? Hold on. Down, up. Alright, I moved across to talk about the lands. That's why Gigantha's sitting weird there. So, running Niv Miz as a commander, naturally. We don't need to tell you what Niv does. I'll leave it here for anyone who hasn't read it before. We have Gigantha, so again, it's very familiar with us. We can only have one mana pip of each colour in the spells we have in our deck, and we can tap it for Wooburg, but we can only pay coloured for coloured, so we can't use it for generic. So, let's go through our lands here. So we have 2 of each basic, these beautiful new stained glass ones. Then we are running literally every shock land and every triome. In addition to that, we are then running every slow land from... Not every slow land, sorry, because there's some that are missing, but we've added a few of the slow lands for the greens because we have a lot of green. We want basically most of the greens that we can add, and some of the blues. Because if you look at our deck here, we have a solid green, and the reason for this, as always, is we are running 10 ramp spells. Now, gone in a different direction with the ramp here. So we've took out the Hour of Promise because Field of the Dead is illegal in this format, it's banned. So at the top of our ramp is 3 spells. We have Cultivate, Grow from the Ashes, and Rolling Regrowth. Really good because it's instant speed, this one, so it's good for the hold up control go. Rolling Regrowth's good for kicking if we can get there. Cultivate. Then in our 2 land slots we have Path to the World Tree and Urban Utopia. So Urban Utopia isn't technically ramp, it's fixing, but it also draws us a card, so it's better on the lower end. So that's 5 of our lands, and our other 5 cards are all these 1-drop lands. Now, so we have Reclaim the Wastes, we search for a basic land, put it into our hand, open the gates, put a basic land or gate, spoiler, we don't have them, into our hand, dig up basic land or Demonic Tutor if we get it late game, Tune Reviver, get a basic land, and Abundant Harvest, choose land or non-land. The reason for these 5 spells is, one is something to do early game on turns 1, 2, and 3, and what I discovered in my testing is just in a 1v1 format, just making our land drops is good enough. We have other advantages and things that we'll go through in time. In addition, I will make a side note here, we do have Flower Flourish here. 9 times out of 10 we are using just the flower to get a basic Plains of Forest, so that's like an unofficial 11th ramp spell. And then we have 2 multicolored pair of cards in the Hero and the Widespread Thievery. That's all we got at the moment. Then we have all of our 2-drop spells. So, based on what I said about Brawls, what I see Brawl has turned into, we have gone with a very interactive heavy deck. You'll notice that we have a lot of spot removal. Basically, it's like the old school interactive deck when I did the tech on it, where I said you want every colour to have good interaction and a top-end bomb or a top-end game winner. So we'll go through and talk about how we categorize each of these now. So Veto for counter, Faithful Mending for draw if we get flooded or stored out, Despark, solid all-round removal, Banishing Verse removal. Drown in the Lock is a kill spell / a counter spell as we need it. Photo Erasure is good to just see what's in their hand. We also get the Surveil even if they're empty. Tyrant Scorn scores us good removal for the early game, or bounce spells. We can bounce Niff to recast if we need to. Cane Infusion digs us for an answer with flashback and consider our graveyard and get us things later. Expressive Iteration, advantage all day. Firebind's Research is like a greatest hit of my experiments in the decks. People are terrified of this, and I don't know. It's one of these things where people are either terrified and take it out immediately, or they leave it and they don't understand how you've still got so many cards in hand, or how you've done 10 damage to them by removing counters. So then moving down, we have Angrat's Rampage for an Edict effect for creatures, artifacts and planeswalkers. Coaxer is our big end Rakdos game ender. Going down we have Assassin's Trophy, we have Chevelle for value. If Chevelle sticks, he is insane with the amount of removal we got in this deck. Deadly Brew is another Edict effect and a way to buy back a permanent. Territorial Carvu, 2 mana 5/5, never a bad thing. Justice Strike to removal. Helix for small creature removal and life gain. Rip Apart for its versatility. Decisive Denial as a counter spell but also as a fight spell. You've got to remember in this format we always have access to a 6/6 that could be out on the field. So essentially this reads kill anything with 5 toughness or less, well 6 toughness or less, or counter a non-creature spell with a mana leak. Growth Spiral, I need to pay for the Japanese art because it's so sick, but I'll get to that at some point. And Hydrant Crisis is our Simic Bomb. We're not in a big mana deck, so we probably, unless we draw the super late game, we won't get this down for 10 like we used to in the old Nissa double mana decks. But this card can just sit on the field with 4 counters, draw us a card, 2 cards, and gain us 2 life. It's still really solid and really fun. Cultivating Ramps, so we have Soul Herder for Blink synergies, primarily just for Niv Mizzet if I'm truly honest. There's not much else you'll want to blink in this deck. There are some things, but we'll get to them in a second. Modify for removal, Wandering Mind to dig. There's so many hits in our deck, it's very unlikely that this will whiff. It's also another blink target for the Soul Herder. Hit at Ksugu, consumes all. Another blink target here. If we turn into the vessel you're consuming, we can blink it and turn it back into Ksugu's consumes all to wipe graveyards again. Colligan's Command, versatile all-round card. Unlicensed Disintegration. Unless we have Widespread Thievery, we're not going to meet the artifact requirements, but it's still 3 mana, kill a creature. Maelstrom Pulse, backbreaking against a token deck, but also just non-permanent removal for 3 mana, good rate. Dire Strain Rampage. This card is very high in my estimation. This is destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. If a land is destroyed this way, its controller may search its library for 2 basic lands, put them into the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, the controller finds a single basic land and puts it into the battlefield tapped. It also has flashback for 3 green and red. Key thing about this, doesn't say opponent. So this can also be essentially another copy of Rolling Regrowth for us. Sack a land, get 2 lands out of the deck. And then we can leave it in the flashback for an emergency blow up, say a what's a big threat? A Smothering Tithe or something. Or we could late game just ramp to thin out our deck a bit more. I'm genuinely considering where else to play this. Clothis, I mean, her destiny's always with us, it seems. Definitely climbing off for creature removal. Faber Elder as basically a budget Bloom Tender. Knight of Autumn for good ETB synergies / for Soul Herder, always relevant in some way, big creature, gain life. Knight of the Reliquary. Now we don't have a lot in the way of fetch lands. In fact, we have no fetch lands, and we don't have Field of the Dead to tutor for anymore. But sacking the knight to get the world tree is still, not sacking the knight, sorry, sacking a land with the knight to get the world tree is still really relevant. And we can end up with lands in the graveyard, so it's still one of the best Selesnya creatures for the deck at a low rate. I will say that, at a low rate that meets Gigantha's requirements. Uro is our second big hit in Simic. I know I said one, but we got two because, let's face it, Uro is essentially a growth spiral that can become a 6/6 Titan in the late game. Now let's move into our late game stuff. So, we're going through our big hits here, hopefully. So we have two wipes, we'll cover them first. Common Ritual, love this card. It's not as relevant in this format because there's not such an abundance of cheap mana rocks and treasures, but there are still a lot of things, like there's Mind Stone in this format, there's signets and things. It is, well, not signets, what are they called? Arcane Signet, yeah, that's one. We also have Solar Blaze as our big creature removal card. Again, we're running, there's not a lot of board wipes in a Gigantha restricted colour, particularly with this restriction, so it's still very, it's not very great, but it still hits good. So, let's go through our hitters here. We have Edgar with his sick alternate art here. Edgar's a Vampire Lord 4/4, but the big thing with Edgar is if you kill him, he will simply flip over into his coffin, and then every upkeep make a 1/1 vampire until he gets 3 counters on it, and then he'll flip back. So, as we've seen in some of our videos, if you want to get rid of Edgar, you need either exile removal or 2 removal spells, and that's a great rate for us if our opponent has to use 2 on him. We're running Nemta, the Primal Warden. Basically, this is Kalitas at home. Doesn't have lifelink, but it can draw us cards, so I'm still up in the air on how good this card is. But again, it's similar to Chevelle. If we can keep this on the field with removal in our hand, it's going to generate us so much late game value. Captain Sisse, I mean, 2/2 that tutors legendary cards, puts them into our hand. I mean, if we don't have a huge concentration of legendary stuff, but most of our big hit finishes are. And I mean, even just grabbing an Uro or a Clophis to just grind out some value late game is going to be very solid. And now into our 5-drops. Oh wait, we have Struggle to Survive. This isn't technically a 5-drop. This is a removal spell / shuffle into the graveyard. We have Teferi because he's the best Selesnya Planeswalker. I'm not counting the free mana one, which is banned in Alchemy and here, or the Alchemy version of Teferi. It's not as good. But I also don't use Alchemy cards where I can help it, unless I either have an absurdly beloved character, it's absurdly busted, or it's something else. Scarab God, I mean, anyone playing Standard knows this. And Skeleton Swarming, yes, I'm playing Skeleton Swarming because my only experience playing this card was in Commander, where it really sucks, because you only get, by the time it comes back around to you, there's been 3 other upkeeps, 3 other end steps. So this doesn't do much. However, playing it in the Nivwish decks, in Pioneer and Explorer, I've suddenly realized how quickly this clock actually does go around. So, put it this way, let's say that you start with 1 skeleton, and you have to attack with it. So you play this, end step you get a skeleton. Next upkeep, you swing with that skeleton, it gets jumped, or it dies in some way. Your end step, you get 2, that's 4 power. Now if they can't answer that because it's late game, they'll be hit for 4 next turn. Turn after that, they'll be hit for 9. Then they'll be hit for 16. That's assuming no other creatures die and they don't double the skeleton. So I know I'm harking on a bad card here, but it's quickly becoming a pet card that I'm going to force whenever I can. And I did force the Goddess player I previously mentioned to literally use his 9 mana spell to clear the skeletons. It was very funny for me. And Minsk and Blue, the timeless heroes. As an avid player of Baldur's Gate 1 to Icewind Dale 2, I am 100% into Minsk and Blue. during lockdown, I think I've told you this story. My friend and me, he never played the Baldur's Gate games. I'd harked on about him for years. While we were stuck in quarantine lockdown, we were like, yeah, let's play it. We'll give it a go. And literally, if you go on my Steam account now, because we both started a new one on Steam for these new games because they were on sale, it's literally like 300 hours between all the games that we grinded into this. I'm gushing too much over this, so we'll just keep going. So yeah, so Minsk, we make Boo, we put counters on Boo, we can sack Boo, and yeah, draw cards. I mean, nothing more to say there. Finally, Flower Flourish. So, key things to take away here. You'll notice that we are lower to the ground than previous ones. We are running way more in the way of interaction. We basically want to kill everything they play. It's literally, as I said before, the Commander style of playing Niv. So we're playing it like Commander with the interactive deck. So what we want to do is we want to use our resources. Normally, I would say if it was a Commander game, we would spread it out. Like, we'll take out key little pieces. In this format, we basically go hard control. It's like counter this, destroy that, exile that. No cards in hand, cast Niv, get some more gas. Force them to answer a 6/6 in the air because they're only at 25 life. Yeah, it can be absolutely brutal. So that is the deck we are going to play in some Brawl matches. I'm going to try and record them in the future. I just wanted to put the tech here. I'm going to focus purely on this one because I was losing track of what's in what. And if I make any updates to this one, I've been going through and updating, so I'm going to, if I update this one in any way, I will point it out before videos going forward. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoy some Brawl content, if it's not completely dead format.